Few know, but there's something about Carlo Acutis that has never been fully revealed, until now. Many know him as the young internet saint, but what few expected was that, even after his death, he would continue surprising the world with extraordinary signs. What if I told you that a new miracle has been confirmed, directly linked to the tomb where Carlo was buried? That's right. A discovery that promises to change the way you view faith and spirituality. What could Carlo still have to teach us? Is there a hidden message behind this latest mysterious event? Get ready, because what you are about to discover might transform your view of devotion and the power of intercession. Carlo Acutis was not just an ordinary young man, but someone who embraced faith as his life's mission. From a young age, he showed that living Christianity goes beyond rituals or customs. It involves transforming the heart and influencing the world around us. Imagine a teenager who, while others spent hours in distractions, dedicated his time to studying the Bible, attending services, and joyfully witnessing the word of Jesus Christ. That was Carlo. What makes Carlo so fascinating isn't just his spirituality, but the practical way he lived his devotion. He didn't just talk about faith, he demonstrated it in every detail of his life. At school, he helped classmates with difficulties. At home, he made sure to be respectful and helpful. Have you ever stopped to think about the impact that small gestures like these can have on the lives of those around us? Carlo understood this early on. More than just a devotee, Carlo was an example of how faith and youth can walk hand in hand. He proved that you don't need to wait years to become an instrument of God. Perhaps, deep down, this is the invitation he offers to every young Christian, to live authentically, to seize every opportunity to worship and praise Christ, and to transform daily life into a constant search for spirituality. After all, his journey doesn't end here, it only begins. Carlo Acutis was born in London but grew up in Milan, where from an early age he developed a deep passion for the Eucharist. While many of his peers were immersed in play and distractions, Carlo sought Bible studies and actively participated in church celebrations. His heart burned with a desire to live his faith fully, and it was this spiritual thirst that led him to create something groundbreaking, a website dedicated to Eucharistic miracles. Carlo's idea of using technology to spread the gospel was revolutionary, especially at a time when the Internet was still in its infancy as a tool for evangelization. He cataloged Eucharistic miracles around the world, creating a true online devotional study. Today, we might ask, how many young people would have such boldness? Carlo made it clear that technology, when used wisely, can be a powerful means of praise and worship. Following Carlo's example, every young Christian can transform their social media into a channel for faith testimonies. Sharing verses, talking about the Bible, and participating in online prayer groups are some practical ways to live spirituality in the digital age. Carlo teaches us that when passion for Jesus Christ meets creativity, even the Internet becomes an altar of worship. Carlo Acutis challenged the traditional view of holiness by showing that it does not belong to a few chosen ones, but is a vocation open to all. He didn't wear a habit, nor did he live isolated in a monastery. He was a young man like any other, going to school, playing with friends, but making faith the center of his life. Carlo reminds us that being holy is not an unattainable state, but a constant pursuit of being closer to God in every small gesture. The most incredible thing is realizing how Carlo, without grand pretensions, encouraged those around him to live Christianity authentically. He believed that true worship comes from the heart and is revealed in daily actions, respecting others, helping the needy, not giving in to the pressures of a society increasingly distant from spirituality. And you know what's more interesting? Small choices made with love can have a huge impact on someone's life. So, if Carlo, an apparently ordinary young man, was able to walk this path, what's stopping us? Perhaps the answer lies in the courage to take the first step, to live faith without fear of what others might think. Carlo proved that we don't have to wait for perfect circumstances to start practicing what the Bible teaches. And it was with this mindset that he witnessed his own faith, attracting others to follow the same path. Speaking of testimonies, after Carlo Acutis' death, impressive reports of graces and miracles attributed to his intercession began to emerge. Families reported unexpected healings, impossible situations resolved after prayers directed to him. One of the most well-known cases is of a child in Brazil who was healed of a rare disease after his parents asked for Carlo's intercession during a devotional service. These faith testimonies reinforce the idea that Carlo continues to spiritually act even after his departure. What makes these reports so striking is how they connect with Carlo's message: live with simplicity, but with deep trust in Jesus Christ. Each miracle is like a reminder that God's work never ceases and that, even in the most difficult situations, prayer can be a direct bridge to heaven. Imagine the power of believing that, when you kneel, something grand can happen. Carlo lived with that certainty, and it continues to inspire young Christians around the world. In light of these signs, it's impossible not to reflect on the role each of us can play by seeking God with sincerity. What if the next miracle is just waiting for your faith? Carlo showed that for God to act, it all begins with a willing heart. And this willingness, combined with a life of praise, can transform the ordinary into the extraordinary. Perhaps that's why his story continues to challenge us and prepare us for a greater calling. Carlo Acutis' life wasn't marked by grand, visible deeds, but by the small daily actions that reflected his devotion and love for others. He believed that each person possesses unique talents given by God, and these gifts should be used to serve others. Carlo demonstrated this by helping friends with school difficulties, being patient with those who disagreed with him, and practicing acts of kindness in anonymity. A simple yet powerful example of how the gospel can be lived out in everyday life. For Carlo, true worship didn't stop at the church walls. It extended into family life, work, and relationships. He believed that any everyday situation could be an opportunity to witness faith. You know those moments when you have the chance to forgive someone or offer a comforting word. Carlo saw these moments as small altars where devotional life is expressed in a practical and transformative way. What if each of us began to see the daily routine with the same eyes as Carlo? Perhaps the hours at work, studying, or even casual meetings with friends could become spaces to spread the gospel. Carlo reminds us that being the light of the world doesn't require greatness but constancy. And so, he invites us to continue firm in this walk, where every gesture can be an act of worship. This leads us to something even deeper. Carlo Acutis' journey is deeply intertwined with biblical teachings. He often said, "The Eucharist is my road to heaven," drawing from Jesus' words in John 14 verse 6, "I am the way, the truth, and the life." Carlo understood that to follow the gospel, it wasn't enough to just know the Bible, it had to be lived in its entirety. Thus, every step he took was guided by the burning desire to be a reflection of Christ in the world. He also strived to be the light of the world, as Matthew 5 verse 16 teaches, "Let your light shine before men." In small actions, Carlo revealed his faith, whether by sharing a Bible study with friends or encouraging other young people to dedicate more time to prayer. Have you ever noticed how, often, it's these small actions that transform the realities around us? That's exactly what he did, without waiting for grand moments to act. Finally, Carlo lived out the calling in Mark 16 verses 15 to 18, "Go into all the world and preach the gospel." He found in technology a powerful tool to spread God's word, proving that evangelization can take many forms. How about applying this to your own life? Witnessing your faith doesn't have to be complicated. It can be as simple as sharing hope with someone in need. And that's where the holiness of simplicity comes into play. For Carlo Acutis, spirituality didn't depend on grand feats or extraordinary events. He saw God in the small things, in a friend's smile, in the silence of a solitary prayer, or in the simple act of helping someone. This perspective invites us to abandon the idea that being holy requires heroic deeds. True devotion, according to Carlo, is born in the simplest actions, those that often go unnoticed but reflect the love of Christ. This spirituality of simplicity allowed Carlo to turn each day into an encounter with God. He didn't separate religious life from everyday life. He wove them together into one, showing that devotion doesn't have to be limited to worship time. Imagine starting the day by thanking God for the gift of life, or turning a moment of study into an opportunity for praise. This was the lifestyle Carlo practiced, and it continues to inspire so many young Christians today. Following Carlo's example means living faith naturally, without artifice or masks, seeking the presence of Jesus Christ in every detail. How about trying that too? Throughout the day, instead of waiting for the ideal moment to pray or meditate, how about using every break to lift your heart to God? This path of simplicity opens doors to something even greater, something that Carlo lived with special devotion, his love for Mary. Carlo Acutis had a deep devotion to Mary, recognizing her as the greatest intercessor before Jesus Christ. From a very young age, he developed the habit of praying the Rosary daily, believing that this practice strengthened his spiritual journey and brought him closer to God. Carlo saw Mary as a loving mother, always ready to welcome and guide her children on the path of faith. And so, he left us a powerful legacy, the importance of including Mary in our Christian journey. But Carlo didn't just pray, he lived Marian spirituality. Inspired by Mary's humility, Carlo sought to be humble in his actions, serving God discreetly and authentically. Have you ever thought about how this devotion can transform the way we face life's challenges? Praying the Rosary is not just a tradition, but an invitation to reflect on the mysteries of the faith and to cultivate inner peace, even amid life's storms. Following Carlo's footsteps, perhaps it's time to rediscover the strength of this ancient but always relevant practice. How about experiencing the power of the Rosary in your daily life, turning moments of restlessness into moments of worship? Just as Carlo found in Mary a source of inspiration, we too can follow this path of devotion, preparing ourselves for something even more impactful: Carlo's influence in the digital age. Carlo Acutis didn't just live his faith intensely. He also left behind a digital legacy that continues to inspire generations. At a time when few saw the Internet as a tool for evangelization, he created a website dedicated to Eucharistic miracles, aiming to bring spiritual knowledge to people all around the world. Carlo understood that the virtual world didn't have to be a place of emptiness, but could instead be a space for spreading the gospel. The impact of this project was immense, as even today many young people discover faith through the digital content Carlo left behind. He showed that technology can be used for something greater than entertainment, transforming it into a vehicle for praise and worship. And if Carlo was able to do this with the limited resources of his time, what's stopping us from doing the same today? Social media, blogs, and videos can be powerful tools to spread devotional messages and testimonies of faith. Following Carlo's example means understanding that every post, every interaction, can be a seed of spirituality. How about creating content that inspires others to seek Jesus Christ? It could be a shared verse, a summarized Bible study, or even a message of hope. Carlo paved the way, and now it's up to us to continue his work, remembering that his mission didn't end here. It continues in the communion of saints. Carlo Acutis deeply understood the value of communion with the saints, recognizing that they are companions on our spiritual journey. After his death, many faithful began asking for his intercession in their prayers, and reports of graces received quickly began to emerge. Stories of people who found comfort, healing, and even solutions to difficult problems after turning to Carlo are testimonies of faith that reinforce the importance of seeking the help of the saints. The communion of saints is one of the pillars of the Christian faith, and Carlo showed that, even as a young man, he could play an important role in this mystery. He didn't just live as a devout Christian, he continues to inspire others to do the same. Have you ever thought about how comforting it is to know that, even after death, those who loved God continue to intercede for us? This understanding brings us even closer to the Church and the meaning of sermons and worship. If Carlo, a young man living an ordinary life, could reach such a level of spirituality, what's stopping us from walking the same path? Perhaps it's time to start seeing communion with the saints as a natural extension of our prayers. After all, if Carlo continues to influence lives around the world, wouldn't that be a clear sign that holiness is accessible to everyone? And it's precisely this universality that makes his message so special. Carlo Acutis' story isn't confined to a single culture or religion. His example of love for God transcended borders, touching hearts around the world. Young people from different countries, regardless of their backgrounds, were inspired by the simple and authentic way he lived the gospel. Carlo reminds us that faith has no geographical or social barriers, and the call to holiness is a universal invitation. One of the most impressive aspects of his life is how, even at such a young age, he was able to impact people from different contexts. From personal devotions to large worship services, Carlo showed that the essence of Christianity is living love for others, wherever you are. This universal reach makes us reflect, don't we also have the ability to positively influence our surroundings, no matter how small they may seem? The Bible teaches us that every seed of faith can bear fruit where we least expect it. Carlo shows us that living a devotional life doesn't mean isolating ourselves, but opening up to the world with a heart full of Jesus Christ. Perhaps, by following his example, we can begin to see our everyday actions as opportunities for evangelization. And that's why his message remains alive, paving the way for each of us to be light and testimony, no matter where we are or who we are.